right now, going to be joining in just a moment. So we will listen to Kyrie at the podium, and then later on we will have him here on set with us as well. The six-time All-Star making his way to the podium for his first address to the media as a member of the Brooklyn Nets. And we're going to ask the first question here on ES. Kyrie, Ryan Ruocco with the ES Network. First of all, welcome to Brooklyn. Just wondering, way over here to your left, back on the set, just wondering, since you've signed, I know obviously you guys are just getting into the real thick of it here, but what has the experience been like for you with your teammates, coaching staff, front office here since your decision to become a Brooklyn Net?
Well, first, I'm incredibly grateful to be here. It's been a journey that I've taken numerous steps in different directions, and I've failed and succeeded. So for me, 8 years being in the NBA, learning as much as I can from a business component, personal, leadership, just community. First and foremost, I wanted to reach out, especially when free agency started, to Brooklyn and let them know that my interest was very high. And I had some other pieces that I wanted to bring with me as well. And this is the perfect place to do it. This has been a very hard-working place for the last 4 years of putting together a team here in Brooklyn, transferring from New Jersey, transitioning from New Jersey over here to Brooklyn. It's just been an incredible journey to observe from afar, just as a player in the NBA, coming to Brooklyn, being at Barclays, feeling incredible about the energy in the stadium. And I wanted to transition that into being a player here as well and actually get to know the front office in a way that we had longevity and we had time to gel. Nothing was forced. So it was just a great feeling to know that I had the support of the front office, my teammates that I brought from other teams, teammates that I had to reach out to, and really make this thing feel like home. So Jersey's my original home where I come from, but, the Nets transitioning here was just it was great. NBA has been full of ups and downs of mental capacity things that I've dealt with, injuries, and just dealing with this whole hoopla thing as well. It's just getting used to this and really igniting different things in an industry and a business such as the NBA has been incredible. So I'm grateful to see it unfold today, and be here and just really talk about how gracious I am to be here.
Kyrie, Greg Logan of Newsday. Can you give us some insight into the conversations you had with Spencer Dinwiddie, for instance, before you came here, and then also with KD, and DeAndre, as far as, building that all-star core? Thanks.
Well, I definitely have unique relationships across the league. Just the respect I have for the different players and the different journeys that they've had to be NBA basketball players. So me and Spencer's relationship went far beyond the court itself. So we got a chance to know one another during All-Star Weekend in Los Angeles. We ended up hanging out. He won the skills challenge. Didn't really talk too much about any free agency or anything like that, but we had a relationship that we developed from then on. So it felt great. That was a core piece and really feeling comfortable here after free agency started. And then with Katie and DJ, it was, 4:16 in the morning, us just talking about our futures and how this opportunity ahead of us is something that we haven't had in our careers, the ability to make a choice, sitting down, actually talking in detail about the future and the investment we had in one another and the investment we wanted to have in Brooklyn. So it made sense all the way around, and then having the incredible people that they have in the organization made it that much easier. They made us feel like all-stars. They made us feel like we were supposed to be treated fairly, from the media component, from our teammates, from the first-class service that they give here, concierge, and most importantly for me was just the family atmosphere. They reached out to my family as soon as I committed, and it felt like they were very inclusive with everything that they had going on here, and it was just like a step away, being away from home, and they made me feel as comfortable as I could, as well as reaching out to Katie and DJ and as well as other guys on the team to make sure that they know what's going on, that this is for the future. We're here to build. We're not saying we're a championship team right now. We're not going to say this is what it's going to be going forward. We're just here to observe one another, care for one another, and then be here to enjoy playing basketball. But first and foremost is our family. And I feel like sometimes that can get confused in this league about who we are as human beings. So I'm always going to be an advocate for that. and they are advocates is that we're humans first and then we're basketball players. So.
Kyrie, Brian Lewis, New York Post, front row here. I'm just curious, between all of the, I guess, the things that you have alluded to, both the family atmosphere that's here, style of play, Kenny, the relationships that you have with some of your new teammates, in your mind, what was the most important thing, I guess, to you when you were making your decision and you decided to come here? If you had to crystallize and say, listen, this was really high, if not top on my list of priorities that led you here?
I would say that on the list of priorities, the number one thing was acknowledging the fact of the steps it took to get here. That was the first step, was 8 years of really hammering home being in a team environment, being an NBA basketball player, and trying to be successful at a sport that sometimes, or for the most part, spills over into my personal life, and then allowing that to really put me in a place where I'm able to make a decision for me and my family for the long haul. And, you know, like I said, it was very, very trying this whole entire 8 years of being in the NBA and learning as much as I could about the business and personal side of it. So I wanted to remove all of that and really take a step back and not be an advocate for, you know, people not being treated fairly, especially from different outside sources and the way the NBA product works. So for me, it was just about honing on what was important, and that was coming back home. That was the important staple that I had in my mind. Mind you, it took months and months. It almost took a year and some change for me to even come to that decision because, you know, 9 months ago, I was sitting in front of the Boston crowd saying that I wanted to resign. And after that, a lot of things happened in my personal life that really changed the landscape of how I felt about the game of basketball and actually playing it in a team environment. And that really affected me as a human being. And I didn't share it with anyone. I didn't want to come out and say that this is bothering me, or I'm in a depression at this point of dealing with the death of my grandfather. So when all this happened and the NBA and the pressures, I put it in quotations, from this basketball game came into free agency and what I was doing with my future, I wanted to dispel all those things, but I don't think I did it in the right way of being honest about how I felt. So I just wanted to come here with a very fresh mindset and make sure that I'm honest with my teammates going forward, and also reverting back to apologizing to guys that I've been with and been teammates with to make sure that they know, hey, this is a game, but also our lives come into this. And when it affects our livelihood and it affects our happiness to play basketball, then the product or our service out there on the floor is not great. And that's just what it is. Personal lives, it seems like it's not as important, but in talking in terms about relationships and coaches and all this other stuff that go into the team environment, I think the important thing is to realize that the human being as a basketball player or in any industry struggles as well, dealing with personal issues. So for me, I just wanted to come in with that mentality, like, hey, I'm just going to be honest about who I am and what I'm doing going forward and my goals for myself, and then apply that into the environment here that we have in Brooklyn. So,
hey, Kyrie, Stephen Bonnie from the New York Daily News. Obviously, we don't know if KD or if he's going to play, when he's going to come back. What are your expectations for this first season in Brooklyn, not knowing about him?
I mean, I'm pretty sure that question is going to come up pretty frequently throughout the year. But even while he was injured, I made sure that he knows that he has our support 100%, that there isn't going to be any pressure from any of us at any time. And I will make sure of that because I've been in that same position of being the guy that's injured on the team and everyone looking like, are you going to come back anytime soon? If you come back, then this is going to be our championship caliber team. If you were playing, then this would happen. And naturally, I think you have to go inside the mind of a competitor and realize that a lot of people have responsibilities for why that ended up happening the way it happened on a national scale. We all know K was not ready to play in that environment. We all know that, whether people want to admit it or not. He was out 31 days, and we put him on a national stage on the finals to end up selling a product that came before the person Kevin. And now I'm here to protect that. I'm going to be a protector of that all throughout the year and not allowing anyone to infiltrate that circle of, hey, K, do you, get right, we'll be fine. We have expectations for our team. We obviously know he's an integral part. but we'll wait for that. I'm very patient. I'll be over patient with Kevin because I don't want anything like that to happen to anyone again, especially on that type of stage where it happened and him having to answer questions about whether or not he's coming back or not. So I'm here to dispel it that you'll never hear me say he's coming back here or I think he's coming. I want him to be 101% healthy.
Kyrie, Adam Himmelsbach with the Boston Globe in the middle here. You alluded to it a little bit a minute ago, but can you kind of elaborate on the process like for you, obviously making that commitment in October, kind of saying you'd like to go back to Boston. Obviously things changed, and just kind of what changed for you over that time?
Well, I think around that time, it felt incredible in terms of the energy that we were building, especially for the future in Boston. It was something that I couldn't really explain at the time because, you know, personally, I don't think I was acknowledging the things that were surrounding my life as well, and how to lead this group of guys that I've been traded to, that I wasn't drafted by Boston. I had no type of affiliation with Boston before I left Cleveland. There wasn't any anything that happened. Boston was a surprise team with Wick and Danny that took the chance on trading for me. And when they did, and the way our first season happened, and then also the way the end of the season happened, and having so much youth and so much exuberance and goals set personally, I think that some of the actual knowledge that needed to be had in terms of being a championship team takes more than just 2 years. It takes more than just an environment that you feel just comfortable in. Hey, you know, I think I want to re-sign here if you guys have me. Boston crowd was immense. It was crazy. They loved me in Boston. I loved the Boston fans. And then 2 weeks later, things just got really, really rocky for me in terms of when I left for, I believe you know, after the Phoenix game, I went to my grandfather's memorial. And he passed on October 23rd, and after he passed, basketball was the last thing on my mind. So a lot of basketball and the joy I had from it was sucked away from me, and there was a facial expression that I carried around with me throughout the year. Didn't allow anyone to get close to me in that instance, and it really bothered me. And I didn't take you know, the necessary steps to get counseling or get therapy or anything to deal with someone that close to me dying. I've never dealt with anything like that. So for me, I responded in ways that are uncharacteristic. And like I said, I had to acknowledge that fact. And I had to acknowledge that fact to the organization first, because that was our internal bond and trust that we had. I talked to Danny. I wanted to re-sign. So throughout the year, it started becoming more and more clear that my relationships within my home life have way higher precedent than the organization or anyone. And I barely got a chance to talk to my grandfather before he passed from playing basketball. So you tell me if you would want to go to work every single day knowing that you just lost somebody close to you, doing a job every single day that everyone from the outside or anyone internally is protecting you for. Like, hey, just keep being a basketball player. So throughout that year, it just became rocky, and a lot of the battles that I thought I could battle through in the team environment, I just wasn't ready for. And I failed those guys in a sense that I didn't give them everything that I could have during that season, especially with the amount of pieces that we had. So my relationships with them personally were great, but in terms of me being a leader in that environment and bringing everyone together, I failed. So, you know, for me, it's just a huge learning experience just to slow down and acknowledge that I'm human in all this. And then also take my steps going forward of reaching out to Danny and talking to those guys in Wick and reaching out to them and letting them know, hey, look, basketball can end tomorrow. I care about you guys as a human being. I know this is a competitive environment, but let's move past this and let's go forward. Marcus, Terry, all those guys just want to be great. You know, we were all internally trying to be great. And I don't think we were trying to be great as a team to meet at the top. And that happens in team environments all the time, whether people want to admit it or not. There are personal goals that everyone has, family, friends, media, telling everyone, hey, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. In actuality, none of that crap matters. So everyone has a role to play, and you see the most experienced teams end up winning the championship because they all buy in and sacrifice. It's usually the oldest teams in the league that make it there every single year because they don't have to deal with the same youthful expectations that are unrealistic for players that really have to earn different things in this league to be at that level. So, including myself. So.
Kyrie, Ian Begley from SNY. Once you decided that you were going to leave Boston, I mean, at what point was the plan in place for you and for Kevin and for DeAndre to come somewhere together? Was that always a thought, or when did that come to fruition?
Well, no, I think that the reality of it didn't set in until probably mid-June or like late June, just because everything was just being tossed out for where I could go free agency, where he could go free agency, where DJ was in his contract, what Garrett was doing. There are different players that came into this whole team of being. So we just had to be honest with each other. And like I said, 4:16 in the morning, the night of free agency, or the day in that morning of free agency, we still had no idea what we were doing, because we didn't know the rules. We didn't know, okay, what are the things that we have to do going forward to make this thing happen. It just was, we just want to care for one another in a way where we can build for the next 4 years and on. Like, we want to end our careers together. We want to do this as a team. And then what better place to do it than Brooklyn, with all these guys that have worked their tails off to be where they are now, to even be in position here in Brooklyn. They've developed a Joe Harris. Joe Harris got drafted by Cleveland. I knew Joe was going to be special enough to be a great piece for a team right when I saw him. But like I said, roles in Cleveland, we were a championship team in Cleveland at that time. Joe couldn't play on our team at that time. That was just the reality. So Brooklyn gave him a chance, an opportunity, and now he's performing. So it all meshed well together. But we talked in detail just that morning, and then later on that day, we just decided, hey, we're just going to break this. Like, we're doing this together, and then we'll form a formulated plan around that. So basically, it just happened in the spur of the moment on that day.
All right, one last question.
Hey, Kyrie, Christian Winfield, New York Daily News. What was it, I guess, about the way the Nets play basketball on the court that sold you? And how do you feel that you can, A, elevate what they did last year, and B, I guess, mesh with what they were running with last year as well?
Well, I think that the primary goal is to have the guards have the ball in their hands, as we watched D. Russ last year have a career year playing under Kenny, and as well as playing with Spencer and playing with Karras. Obviously those guys dealt with their individual injuries, and a lot of the work came on D. Russ's watch, and he really elevated himself and carried this team in a way which really, from an observative standpoint, I was really happy. I was like, okay, this guy he's really showing who he is. And then as we got along, I just started to imagine different lineups, who would be implemented this way. How can Kenny teach us in a way that gives us freedom out there on the floor, and we're not so structured, but we have an expectation for who we are as a team day in and day out. And he's going to tell you like it is. Kenny's known for telling it like it is, which I appreciate. So it meshed very well at the time. And like I said, I wanted to show an appreciation for the journey that I've had watching the Nets over in Jersey, over in Continental Airlines at that time, being a kid, being at the finals, and that being an inspirational piece of the last person that, although it was an ABA championship, but I pay attention to things like this, is the last time was Julius Irving being here as well. So for me, it's just about the history, and then also the transition that it's made, and now being in Brooklyn, also being from Jersey, it was like, okay, let me bring this New York, New Jersey style to the court. I don't think we've seen a player from around here be on the team as, just this example now of in the community as well as on the floor. I grew up playing in some of these parks. I popped up at a Brooklyn park the other day, not realizing that I'm still not normal. So when I go outside and I see all these kids leaving a bunch of courts, I'm like, I just came here to shoot with my dad, because that's where I grew up, is outside playing basketball, having that attitude to really prove people right, that I'm the next one and meant to take over this league for the next few years. So
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Just wondering, for you, what has the experience been like so far since signing with the Nets, just in this time leading up until media day, training camp, and being around your teammates in the facility?
It's been amazing. It's been a lot of support, especially going through rehab. So that's all I really wanted at this point. And there's been that and much more. So everything's been cool so far.
Kevin, how's it going? Christian Winfield, New York Daily News. Kyrie was talking about his relationship with different guys and how he was able to kind of bring you here with him. Can you kind of talk about how you guys' relationship has built over the years, and just what it's like now to be on the same team now and going forward for the next 4 years?
Yeah, I mean, we got to build that mutual respect for somebody, especially following them since high school, kind of following each other's careers. And it's very rare we could meet up at this point and have a decision in front of us where we can control our destinies. And we sat down and talked about it and what basketball meant to us as a whole. And, I think this is the perfect spot for us to hone our skills and continue to keep growing. So, it was one of those things you just, it kind of happened organically, and we kind of moved just pretty smooth with it.
Kevin, Greg Logan of Newsday, can you also tell us, he said that what better place to start than with the Nets and the core of guys they had grown. How did that discussion go? There was so much talk about you guys would go to the Knicks and so on. How did you wind up choosing the Nets themselves, and what did you see?
I mean, we're fans of basketball, and we know it pretty well, and it's really easy to see, what these guys brought to the table. So it's not like I had to do any deep analysis on any player here. I mean, just watching games and playing against them and seeing a continuity throughout the last couple of years is pretty easy to kind of figure out what kind of team this and kind of organization this place is.
Kevin, Brian Lewis from the New York Post, front row here. When Kyrie was just up here, he was talking about, I guess, his relationship with you, and he was mentioning that he'll never go out and say, hey, I expect Kevin will be back X day or Y day, because he says, the guy was put on the floor before he was ready to play, and we see the result of that. I'm going to protect him from that. I'm just curious your reaction to hearing that from him, and I take it that's basically a window into the kind of relationship that you guys have formed.
Look, I mean, when I went down, it felt like everybody wanted to put their arms of protection around me, from people I didn't know to, my best friend and Kyrie, So I felt like everybody was real protective of me around this time. And I feel like they will continue to be that way, especially involving my health. But I make my own decisions.
Kevin, Gerard Hector, BSO. Kyrie talked about the personal side of it, that you guys are humans, not just basketball players. I know that's something you talk about regularly as well. What's going to be different for you when Kyrie talked about that, and what are you going to sort of share with your teammates in terms of making sure that that side of you, the personal side, is taken care of and everything is good so that you can do what you want to do when you show up at the arena and in practice?
I don't get what you're trying to say.
Kyrie said that it's important that we're human. He was talking about his grandfather dying, and sometimes basketball is not the most important thing, and you've often mentioned the same. So for you, how are you going to approach that in terms of balancing both?
I mean, we're veterans. I mean, just because we talk about it, don't mean we don't have it balanced. I think it's when we talk about things like that, it's just a inside look into what we're thinking as basketball players, really thinking that you want to hear what we got to say. So, at this point of our lives, we're accomplished so much, and we fought through learning how to balance both. And it's hard to do that, but I think me and Kyrie especially gone through so much in this league, understand exactly what we need to do to maximize our talents every day and to be great people off the floor.
Kevin, over here to your left. Justin Walters, Files One. Kenny Atkinson mentioned not too long ago that he thought that your presence alone would help the team and that you'd be able to help the coaching staff. I'm curious what type of role you plan to have with the team while in practice and during your rehab, and do you think that it can really help them play well and mesh together as just yourself when you're able to re-enter the lineup?
I mean, just be a teammate. I mean, I'm not going to do anything extra. Just do what I usually do. I mean, come in and work hard at my rehab, and hopefully that sends a great message out. If anybody has a question on anything while they're in practice or in the game, I know the game pretty well, so I can answer those questions as quickly and honestly as I can, and just try to approach it as in an everyday manner, and try to take it a day at a time. I'm not planning to do anything. I'm just going to be myself.
Kevin, to your right, Michael Lee with The Athletic. Just want to ask you how you plan on approaching this year. I know how much basketball means to you and how much it's always been a shelter for you, but now that it won't be there, how do you plan on approaching this upcoming year where the game may not be there for you?
It's still there. I just don't. I'm just not playing in NBA arenas at 7 p.m. The game is always going to still be there. I still can walk into the gym and shoot shots and work on my game.
Kevin, Mike Mazzio right over here from Yahoo Sports. A lot was made of that talk you had with Kyrie at the All-Star game. Just kind of wondering, how how your friendship kind of started. You called, said he's your best friend, and did you guys think even at the All-Star game that this was a possibility you could play together?
Yeah, I mean, really doesn't matter how we became friends. I mean, I don't really think that's a huge topic. I think we're friends with. I mean, you cross paths with all these basketball players your whole life. Basically, especially once you get out into the circuit. So it's not like we sat down and said, Kyrie, you're my friend. It just kind of happened. So where anything's possible, we feel in life.
Kevin, Steve Lichtenstein, WFAN to your left. We hear a lot about the Nets performance team and training staff. I was curious what your interactions have been so far, and is it different than in the other places you've been?
I mean, the great thing about the NBA is that teams are investing more and more into supporting other players, whether it's from mentally, obviously physically, and so I wouldn't say it's better or worse than any other place, but I think it's just top of the line and elite, and I think that's just what the NBA is as a whole. So every program is at that level now.
Ian Begley from SNY. Kevin, any team with cap space this summer, I'm sure would have loved to sign you, but it seemed like the Clippers, Golden State, the Knicks, and the Nets were those teams that were the serious suitors. How seriously did you consider the Clippers, Golden State, and the Knicks before you made your decision to come here?
I thought about it for a couple seconds and see how my life would look in all of those places for a minute, but ultimately I wanted to be here.
Hey, Kevin, Stephen Bonnie with the New York Daily News. A couple days ago, Sean was saying that the expectation of the team is that you will not play next season. I'm just curious, in your mind, what do you think? I mean, do you think that you can return this season, or do you even?
I mean, me and Sean have been in contact since day one, so if he says it, then it came from me. We came together and made sure that was a message. So, yeah, I mean, anytime he comes up here and says something, you don't have to ask me right after him because I'm going to say the same thing. That's how we thinking today. Same exact thing he said last week is what I'm thinking right now.
Kevin, Adam Zagoria from Forbes. How you doing? It seems like the NBA is more wide open, this year than in the past 5 or 6 years. There's no team that's favored to win it. Do you agree with that? Do you see that it's more wide open than it has been? And how do the Nets fit into that in the next couple of years, attempting to contend for a title?
Yeah, I just think the landscape is different. I wouldn't say more open. I think a lot of you guys probably favor the Clippers as a team to beat. So, every year is a team to beat, team you think is going to win. But, just like last year, Toronto came out of nowhere, Milwaukee came out of nowhere after losing in the first round the previous year to be a finals contender. So each year I think teams are getting better and guys are improving, and also free agency, half of the league was free agents. So obviously there's going to be a landscape change when it comes to the dynamics of the league. So I just think the business of basketball is booming. And the league is always going to be great if the players continue to keep getting better, and you see it every day. So, you never know what you'll see coming in the future in the NBA, what type of players you'll see in the league. So, every year I feel is wide open.
Kevin, Barbara Barker from Newsday. You said when you thought about other teams, you thought for a minute or two what your life might be like there. When you think about, what did you think when you thought what your life is going to be like in New York / Brooklyn, and what did you really like, both basketball and non-basketball, about being here?
I was doing a lot of YouTube research on like Kenny Atkinson and watching interviews and see how he talked after games and stuff, and I really liked his approach to his craft as a coach, and that's what drew me in pretty quickly. I didn't really do too much research on other coaches, so I guess he always had the leg up. But once I started to get comfortable with how he approaches his craft, it started to make me feel at ease, even though I never even had a conversation with him. I could just see it through YouTube and through the clips that he was pretty genuine about the game. And, you know, obviously the talks with Kyrie and then watching the team and knowing Karis and all of this stuff kind of combined at once. And obviously being in the East Coast again was something I was really excited about, playing most of my basketball career either in like the Midwest or West Coast. So I was excited about being at least a few hours from home. So all that stuff played a factor, and I thought about it all. And, you know, but basketball is probably the main factor.
Hey, Kevin, Brian Mahoney from the Associated Press. You were obviously an MVP of the World Championships, and so was Kyrie, actually. Were you surprised by what happened with the U.S. this summer? And knowing you're not going to play a lot of ball this year, will you consider playing again next summer if they're interested?
I wasn't surprised about Team USA. I thought a lot of those guys were young and still, you know, experiencing a lot in the league and still trying to figure out the international game. And I feel like a lot of players dropped out at the last minute too. That kind of hurt their momentum and continuity a bit. So they had to work on the fly, I think. So I wasn't expecting great results, but I feel like a lot of those guys got a great experience out of that, especially Joe being a part of that group. I think it's going to do nothing but help him. But as of right now, I'm just rehabbing every day. I ain't even thought about even shooting a jump shot yet.
Kevin, Bob Windrum, Nets Daily. Just before Kyrie Irving talked about how you and DJ and he spoke at 4:16 in the morning the day of free agency. Can you tell us a little bit more about those conversations?
I mean, we just like, are we ready to do it? And everybody was like, yeah. I mean, it was really that simple. I tried to think of something deeper, but it really was that simple.
Kyrie, Joe Messeri, Pix 11 News. Obviously, you said basketball the main reason that you wanted to come here to Brooklyn, but all of the areas that you were considering pretty metropolitan areas. How much does being in the city for you and your brand impact where an NBA player goes in today's basketball?
Well, I just looked at how I came up in the league. I mean, I came into the league with a lot of expectations, you know, having a good college career. So I came in kind of like with some popularity, if you would say. So market stuff really didn't matter coming up. You know, brand and stuff is only how I play on the court, and that's how I kind of looked at it. So if I play well on the court, then that stuff will follow. So it wasn't huge, but I also knew that, you know, who I am right now, being in a big city like this, can do nothing but help my situation. You know what I'm saying? So I looked at that as well. So, yeah, I deserve to live in a good city. I've been in the league for 12 years, and I get to make a decision like this. Of course, I only looked at cities like that.
Howard Casoy, New York Post. Kevin, you obviously were on one of the greatest teams of all time. You win a bunch of titles, and I guess how difficult was the decision to leave there? And I guess how important was it for you to have a new challenge? Did you feel like you had done all you needed to do there?
No, I didn't look at it that way. Every day is a challenge to stay at this level that I'm at. So I never looked at me switching teams as a new challenge. Every day I wake up, I got to fight against that standard I set for myself. But I felt like it was a time for a change, and I wanted to play for a new team, and simply put, I just did it. I didn't really think about what I was leaving behind or like what we accomplished. I put that up on the shelf already. And when it was time to make a decision on my future, I just thought solely about me.
Hey, Kevin, Christian Winfield again, New York Daily News. There's been a lot of reports about your relationship with Karis. I guess I would like to know how you've watched his game develop over the years and really where that relationship started growing.
Really through Adam Harrington. I mean, I worked with Adam in a critical part of my career when I was transitioning to a different player. And so we built a relationship, and when he got this job, he was just wanted me to get in the gym with a few of his players, which was Karis and Sean Kilpatrick at the time. So, you know, we just hanging out at the crib every day, then going to the gym, and it was just cool. And that turned into having a relationship and just bouncing texts. And when he came to the city, you know, we hung out. So, like I said, everything kind of happened kind of organically once again. And see his career and see how good of a player he's become, I always figured he'd get to this point.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.